So, Boro's first pre-season friendly is in the can with an incredibly eventful 3-3 draw down at Mansfield. So here's my first impressions of Rob Edwards as Boro. What is up, guys? Welcome back to a pre-season Project Boro. I honestly didn't think we'd need to go into so much detail with the pre-season friendlies, but I learnt so much when I went down to Mansfield earlier today to watch Boro's opening pre-season friendly down there. An incredibly eventful 3-3 draw. We had 6 goals, we had 3 penalties, one of them was missed, a 3-goal lead that was squandered in the end to a 3-3 draw, but there is a lot more to the result. And to be honest with you, the result was the least interesting part of the whole game. The result is the most interesting, the least thing I care about from the whole game, if I'm absolutely honest. Yep, would have loved to have won the opening pre-season friendly, would have loved to have seen Boro hang on, and yet seeing us draw 3-3 from 3-0 up is definitely Boxing Day chef wed PTSD. But there's certainly context and certainly reasons as to why that happened, and there's a lot of good that come from that friendly. In fact, there's more good than I actually thought there would be. I was pleasantly surprised by how good Boro were, but then there are also equally a lot of red flags and warning signs, which, to be fair, we already knew. This just reaffirmed that they are there and that there is certainly a lot of work that definitely needs to be done to the squad to get it ready for the championship season. So let's start off then with the first half, and we got our first bit of confirmation of Boro's starting 11. I had to break it to you all in the toilets at Mansfield because I was late to the game, and that is going to just briefly segue me into saying that I did upload a matchday vlog on the YouTube channel. So if you've not seen that, that should be up already. So go check that out to see my live reactions to the game. But Boro did finally confirm, I guess, how they maybe want to set up under Rob Edwards. I say want to set up because we were miles better in this system than we were second half. I think it's the way we want to go, but the reality set in that we do not have the squad depth to set up in this way just yet. But the signs were incredibly promising. We set up in a 3-4-2-1 formation, which is on screen now for anyone watching on YouTube. Tom Glover was in goal. We had a back 3, Lenihan on the left, Rav on the right with Fry in the middle. Luke Ayling was the right wing back. Sammy Silvera, first time we've seen him in a Boro shirt for a long time, was left wing back. Morris and Hackney were back together. Didn't think I'd see them two together in Boro shirts, but here we are. They were together in midfield, and then we had the 2 number 10s in behind the striker, McGree, and Whittaker in behind Tommy Conway. As we've seen the history of Rob Edwards' time as manager, he's played usually a 3 at the back everywhere he's been. It's either been a 3-4-2-1 like this, or a 3-4-1-2 with 2 strikers, or some variation of a 3-5-2. But that was the 11 that we went with, and I'm going to be honest, we were absolutely brilliant in the first half. We were really, really good. I was surprised how good we were. And it's not just that seeing what Edwards was trying to do really, really impressed me and made me feel really optimistic. But the players looked sharp. They looked sharp. They looked up for it. They looked really, really good. They looked like they'd been playing this system, this formation for a very, very long time. We looked really good in the first half. But I do think that was very much helped by what Rob Edwards did, because I was expecting Boro to not only be in a different formation, which we were, I was expecting us to also play very differently. Yeah, I know we've heard about us, Edwards wanting to be more direct, more aggressive. I don't know what I thought I was going to see, but I thought maybe we'd see more long balls, maybe we'd be more direct. But it was like watching a Michael Carrick team, but just with a Rob Edwards touch. And that's really, really interesting. We were still very much playing in possession like Michael Carrick's Boro did. We were playing out from the back like Michael Carrick's Boro did. He has taken what I think worked best from Carrick's Boro. He's took what clearly these players are used to doing, he's worked that into his system, and he's got us playing sort of Carrick's way, but in a different formation. It's really interesting what Edwards has done here, because he obviously doesn't want to just switch things up completely, because the shift and the change would take time and would be a hell of a lot for the players to adjust to. So he's kind of being clever. He's keeping us doing what we were doing well under Michael Carrick, but he's put his own twist on it. And it's exactly what I asked for last season, when I said what I wanted was not a complete, juxtaposition, a complete shift from what we did under Michael Carrick. I wanted someone who was going to take the best of what we had under Michael Carrick, but evolve it, tweak it into something that makes us more solid, more versatile. That was exactly what we did in the first half, and I really liked it. We still played through the centre of the pitch. We still tried to play through the thirds as we always did under Carrick. We were playing the ball out from the back to the centre backs. Often because we had an extra centre back, you'd have Lenihan spare on the left hand side or Rav spare on the right. We'd then play it into midfield, pop it through the thirds with Whittaker and McGree, get up the pitch that way. But the good thing was as well, we weren't afraid to also utilise the wing backs. We weren't afraid to at times go central, other times we'd utilise the wing backs, and that gave us width. And that was another thing I was really, really wanting from Boro. I wanted us to have width, I wanted us to be more solid, and I wanted us to be more versatile, and that's exactly what we were. We'd sometimes go central, we'd sometimes go out wide, we'd mix it up, sometimes we'd play out from the back, sometimes we'd go long. We weren't predictable. That was the really, really good thing. We kept changing what we were doing, and it worked to a T. We had 3 goals in the first half. The first was from a set piece. Harry Watling doing absolute bits from a set piece point of view. We know he's a good set piece coach. Every time Boro had a set piece, he was up off the bench, watching on from the touchline. First corner we got, Whittaker in, great ball, bang, Dale Fry header, 1-0 Boro. We then had a second goal. Tommy Conway converted a penalty later on. Because all the goals came at the other side of the pitch, I had no real idea. I didn't have a good look at what any of the penalties were for. Hopefully when I have a look at the highlights, I'll have a better look. But Tommy Conway put away a penalty to make it 2-0. And then Morgan Whittaker converted beautifully when played in down the right-hand side, beating the offside trap, bending the ball beautifully into the corner. His first Boro goal, and it was very, very well taken. An assist and a goal for Morgan Whittaker in the first half. So going forward, 3 goals, can't complain. We were a threat from set pieces. That's different. We were utilising width. That was different. But we were also really, really solid. The back 3, I thought, were brilliant. They honestly didn't give Mansfield a sniff. Just having that extra body to cover the wing backs made such a difference. Fry stayed central. He headed and kicked everything. Rav and Lenihan by his side, sweeping up all the danger. The back 3 was really, really good. I was really impressed with how that worked. And the whole team worked really well. Hackney and Morris were doing what they were doing. The 10s were roaming around and getting into the game. Conway, of course, got his goal as well. The only 2 areas of this starting 11 which I think do need work are obvious, and that are the wing-backs. We obviously didn't play wing-backs before, therefore we don't have any natural wing-backs at the club, so we definitely need players there. Now, of the 2, I would actually say Sammy Silvera did well. I thought he was bright, he cut inside, he put balls into the box, he was bright, he was a threat. I thought of the 2, him and Ayling, I thought Silvera was the brightest and the better of the 2 by a mile. I thought Luke Ayling chipped in at times defensively, but didn't really offer us anything going forward in the first half. So obviously the 2 wing-back areas are still crucial. The Boro improved there. But the rest of the team I thought were really good. I thought 9 of the first 11 were outstanding. The defence did not give them a sniff. 3 goals. We looked brilliant. We looked versatile. We looked like we could mix it up. We looked solid. We could play through the thirds. We could play out wide. It was a very, very good, adaptable, versatile Boro team. Still playing with the little titches of Michael Carrick's Boro that we saw, that we loved, but also adding a bit of width and a bit of solidity to it as well. Can't complain about the first half. However, there are 2 halves to this tale, everybody, and the second half, well, it couldn't have been any worse, really. Now, I've split this up from the first half and then the final half an hour, because it was an awkward spell between sort of the second half beginning and the 60-minute mark, where we made a few changes, but not wholesale changes, so much of the team was a lot of the same. However, the final half an hour brought me back down to earth and reminded me how much of a job the recruitment team need to do. Because everything else I'd saw in that first half was fantastic. I was sold. I was sold on the formation. I was sold on the setup. I was sold on what we were trying to do. And I thought most of that starting 11 looked absolutely brilliant. But I was then reminded second half of the sheer drop-off in quality that Boro have when it comes to the depth of this squad. And we saw this last season. We saw it many, many times. We spoke of it. We spoke of it on here on the breakdown. That phrase, a high ceiling, a low floor. When Boro's best players are out and you've got others stepping in from the squad, the drop-off is absolutely huge. And that was apparent here. Not only the drop-off, but the lack of depth as well. Because, of course, when we made changes on the hour, we did not have the personnel to keep playing a back three. Obviously, we only have 4 centre-halves. 3 of them started in this game. Borges, the other, came on in the second half. It is worth noting as well, as Zaz and Edmondson were missing after picking up knocks in training. So we had to play with a back 4. We had Bryn in goal. The team's on screen for anyone watching on YouTube. But the back 4 was made up of 3 left-footers and 2 youngsters. We had Bangura on the left. Great seeing him back. First time we've seen him back since the first leg against Chelsea in the League Cup semi-final 2 seasons ago. It was great to see him back on the left. He looked fine. But then we had Borges at centre-back. Then we had McCormick, who is a left-back, playing at first on the right side of the centre-back pairing. I think he moved over to the left later on in the game. And then we had Luke Woolston on the right-hand side. We swapped Hackney and Morris out for McCabe and Barlasser. And then we went with, I don't know if it was a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, but I've stuck with what we had last season. Gilbert was in and around, roaming around behind Bergzorg, who was up front. Marcus Force, who did start the second half in the middle, was moved out to the right once Bergzorg come on, with Micah Hamilton on the left-hand side. And it was absolutely clear from this moment on that Boro both don't have the depth, but we also are so much weaker in a 4. Now, it could be because the personnel were obviously, half of them are never probably going to play in Boro's centre-back pairing or in Boro's back 4 in any given day. As I say, 2 youngsters, 3 left-footed players. It's far from an ideal situation when you look at that back 4. So it definitely was down to personnel, but also down to the fact that when we went from a 3 to a 4, we were getting tortured down the sides. They were just going after our fullbacks time and time again. Bangura, I thought, did okay, but they were targeting him. I'm sorry to say, Luke Woolston was absolutely rinsed. He unfortunately looked like a fish out of water. He really did. He did. He was just getting tortured and rinsed time and time again. Granted, he wasn't getting much help from Force in front of him. He clearly just isn't quite ready for the level Boro need him at right back. He was just getting targeted, and they were having their way with him in that final half an hour. And then, of course, you look at the centre-backs. McCormick's not a centre-back. Borges has been better there, but isn't a centre-back by trade. So they were just peppering our box, our defence, and it was a real struggle. And then the drop-off in midfield was huge too. Once we lost Hackney and Morris, we lost control of the game completely. Barlasser didn't do himself any favours, I would say, if he's trying to convince Rob Edwards that he can compete for them 2 starting spots in midfield. And Lorne McCabe as well. I was hoping to see a bit more from him. Didn't see much from either. Boro lost complete control of the midfield when them 2 went off. And then the front 4 didn't really click either. Once Force was moved on to the right, he was kind of anonymous. Gilbert was in and out, had a few good moments. Bergzorg, fairly ineffective. I just don't think he's a centre forward. He had one big chance, a 1v1, which would have made it 4-1, that he squandered. Interestingly, the only one of the front 4 that I actually thought was pretty good was Micah Hamilton. Honestly, I thought he'd come in and he looked pretty good. Like Silvera, I thought he was bright, and there were times where he took on his man and he beat his man. And I know that sounds weird, but he didn't do that before. He was too Pep Guardiola'd. He was too, coached in the City mould. He would just pick the ball up and lay it off. at least in this pre-season friendly, I saw him drop a shoulder, shift the ball past his fullback, beat his fullback, and put some really good balls in. So it was a promising cameo from Micah Hamilton, I will say that. But this is what Boro's depth looks like. This is what our second 11 looks like. And if this was not a huge alarm bell to ring at the recruitment team to say we need signings, then I don't know what is. Not only do we need signings if we want to play with a back three, which is absolutely the way to go from what I've seen, we can't play a back three without the depth, and then the depth itself is nowhere near good enough. You know, I would say from the players I saw, McCormick, Woolston, Barlass and McCabe, Bergsorg, probably are just not good enough to be backups in their respective positions. So that was a stark reminder that Boro desperately need additions. And it's not just additions to the starting 11. The depth of the team needs to be raised massively. The floor of the team needs to be raised massively, which is not something new. We've been saying that since the end of last season, but it was reaffirmed even more in this pre-season friendly. And of course, we went on and conceded 3 goals. I think the first one of theirs was an absolute beautiful finish. It come from our left-hand side, I believe. You know, I think the second goal might have been the penalty. I think that came... I don't know how the penalty came about, to be honest with you. They missed one previously. I don't know how that one came about either. But then the third came from a cross, you know, free on the right-hand side. Woolston lost his man completely and had a free header at the back post to make it 3-3. So, yeah, certainly the good and the bad of Boro in this 90 minutes. But of course, it's a pre-season friendly, so the result is completely irrelevant. The main thing is that we learnt a lot, and I think we've learnt so much already, as has Rob Edwards, and I hope he's taking this evidence to Kieran Scott and telling him to get a bloody move on with signings, because, boy, we do need them. But most of the starting 11 looked absolutely fantastic, and I loved everything Edwards was clearly trying to do. He made some really interesting quotes after the match. He explained why he made Aidan Morris captain. He said that it was because he wants to rotate the captaincy in pre-season. He wants to see how each player reacts to being a captain. He wants, as he said, 11 leaders on the pitch, and he's testing out who can be that leader by, you know, trading around the captaincy, which is a really interesting and clever thing to do as well. So everything I'm seeing and hearing from Rob Edwards so far has been great. The only thing we'd not seen from him was what he was doing on the pitch, and then what I saw in that first half, I thought was spot on. Really did. I think there's nothing wrong with what Rob Edwards wants to do here. There's nothing wrong with anything on the coaching side. The only thing that's wrong at the minute is the squad and the lack of signings. So the ball is in your court, Kieran Scott. Please deliver the signings that Rob Edwards needs, because if you do, things might look a bit brighter than what we thought. If you don't, we could be in serious trouble with the lack of depth in this team. But that's my thoughts, my first impressions of Rob Edwards' Boro. Let me know yours in the comments if you were at the game or you watched it live from wherever. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to drop this on the podcast providers too, so if you're listening over there, give me a follow and a subscribe if you haven't already. And, of course, comment below with your thoughts. I'm not going to Bradford midweek, so I have no idea what I'm going to do there. I'm busy on the night as well, so I probably won't see any of that game. So I might have to rely on you guys to tell me what happens at Bradford. But, of course, I am going to Rangers next weekend, which should be absolutely awesome. So like I did this weekend, I mentioned it earlier, the match day vlog. Hopefully there'll be another one for the Rangers game as well. But until then, guys, let me know your thoughts. Take care, and I'll see you all